William Shakespeare once wrote, "What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet." Dan Snyder, the owner of the Washington Redskins, has recently come under fire for having a team name that many people find derogatory and racist. Although I would hardly call the Redskins sweet, changing the Redskins name would be the right thing to do because it offends people, because it would be the right business move, and because it would bring football back to SportsCenter. Let's start with the obvious one that's been getting the most press. The name is offensive. Um, Even the word Redskins has a genocidal history. Mark Smith, a writer for ESPN.com, states that the term's origin is disputed, but some say it derives from the bloody scalps of natives, for which the Massachusetts Bay Providence began offering rewards in 1755, 50 pounds for each murdered adult male, 25 pounds apiece for women, and 20 pounds per child. Obviously, even if the origin of the name is bloody and genocidal, people are going to take offense. But many Native Americans take offense to the name as well. Recently, 2 days ago as a matter of fact, the National Congress of American Indians put out a YouTube video called Change the Name, which pleads for the owners of the Redskins and the United States Congress to push for changing the name of the Redskins to something that is less offensive and more likable. As a matter of fact, one of these NCIA members, Jacqueline Pata, who's the executive director, stated, "There is one thing that we can agree with the Washington football team about. The name Redskins is a reflection of the team's legacy and history. Unfortunately, the team's legacy and history is an ugly one." And she isn't lying. The Washington Redskins began as the Boston Braves in 1933 under an owner named George Preston Marshall. They changed their name to the Redskins in 1934 and moved to Washington in 1936. Sadly, the owner, George Preston Marshall, was a well-known racist, and he's the one who named the team. As a matter of fact, the Redskins were the last team to integrate black people in 1962 into their roster. And this was only after much kicking and screaming from Marshall. As a matter of fact, the U.S. government had to get involved and actually threatened to pull his stadium away from him if he wouldn't work with the integration. And so they were the last team. And so obviously they do have a very ugly and bloody and dirty legacy. And even some really famous reporters and some big name papers are giving up on the name because they find it offensive. The latest one was the San Francisco Chronicle, but even people as big as Bob Costas, who is a huge football reporter, and even some newspapers in Washington City, such as the Washington City Papers and the DCist, are giving up on the name. So clearly, changing the name is the right thing to do morally, but it turns out that it's also the right thing to do economically. Turns out changing the name would be the right business move. Many people claim that the club would incur massive costs if the Redskins changed their name. But according to Forbes, only 6.5% of an NFL team's revenue comes from brand equity, which is basically how much the fans identify with the team. Most of their revenue comes from the sport they play and the market they're in. So basically, you could drop any NFL team in Washington, no matter what the name is, and they'd be huge. They'd be a huge, massive economic power. And in addition, name changes aren't unprecedented. Many professional teams across the board, NFL, NHL, baseball, all that stuff, they've changed their name. I mean, the Tennessee Titans used to be called the Tennessee Oilers. And even as recent as 2008, the Tampa Bay Devil Rays changed their name to the Tampa Bay Rays. In addition, many college teams have changed their name from something that was racist to the Native Americans to something more modern. Miami of Ohio's Redskins became the Redhawks. The Marquette Warriors became the Golden Eagles. The Eastern Michigan Hurons became the Eagles, and St. John's Redmen became the Red Storm. And not one of them have incurred losses. There was backlash from some of the hardcore supporters, but the bottom line always held steady or improved. As a matter of fact, two Emory University researchers, Michael Lewis and Manish Tripathi, have done comprehensive research on the topic and have stated that schools experience a very short, which is about 1 or 2 years, negative financial impact and then quickly recover. Furthermore, in the long term, the shift away from a Native American mascot yields positive financial returns, which makes sense. I mean, if you change the name, all of that marketing buzz automatically comes along with it. You have to create entirely new merchandise that all your fans are going to get to go out and buy. And so there's going to be some economic profit. But if you're starting to get tired of all this name stuff, believe me, you are not alone. Changing the Redskins name would bring football back to all the major stations such as SportsCenter and NFL Nation. This topic has gotten way out of hand. Even President Obama has said in an interview with the Associated Press, if I were the owner of the team and I knew that the name of my team, even if they had a storied history, was offending a sizable group of people, I'd think about changing it. If the President of the United States is getting in on this issue, you know it's getting out of hand. It's pretty ridiculous that this is what I'm talking about instead of why the NFL is so great or why you should be a Patriots fan. I mean, but this is the big hot button issue right now. On SportsCenter, I want to see replays of the amazing Monday night game against the Broncos. I don't want to see, stuff about the Redskins name. But sadly, this is going to continue to be an issue until the name gets resolved. So, in short, the Redskins should change their name for people who are deeply offended, for people in the staff who may want to raise, and for the people like me who just want SportsCenter back. Either way, after this terrible season, the Redskins might want to change their name just to get away from this legacy.